Do you notice that there are women who, when they walk into a room, every gaze instinctively follows them? They do not have to be the most beautiful, the richest, or the loudest. They do not need to show off anything at all, yet their presence carries an undeniable weight. That strange magnetism is not social skill, nor is it an expensive designer item. It is an inner gravitational force, a quiet confidence that needs no external validation. This is exactly what the great psychoanalyst Carl Jung called the individuation journey. It is the return to the original self, a state in which the soul, the mind, and the body merge into one, no longer torn apart by old wounds or the social roles one is forced to perform. This confidence cannot be memorized, cannot be faked until successful, nor can it be bought through quick courses. It is forged through a courageous process, daring to look directly into the darkness within oneself, accepting both the light and the wounds, and integrating them into a whole person who no longer fears. So, how do you break free from the masks society has placed on you? How do you ignite that inner flame until it becomes the most natural, enduring, and authentic source of magnetism? Today, you and I will unfold Carl Jung's psychological map to uncover the secret that women with lasting allure possess, the key to awakening the powerful and liberated goddess within you. 1. What is true confidence? Imagine you are an ancient oak tree standing in the middle of an old forest on a cold winter day. The north wind whistles through the canopy, sweeping away everything loose and trembling. The fragile trunks that grew hastily beside you collapse after only a few strong gusts, but you remain there, steady, unmoved. Not because you are the toughest, nor because your outer bark never gets scratched, but because your roots anchor deep into the earth, reaching all the way to where the underground streams flow. That is true confidence. Not loud, not showy, not easily noticed by the naked eye. It is a quiet current, a solid structure beneath every outer layer, the thing that keeps you standing firm against the storms of life. Have you ever wondered why some women do not raise their voices, do not wear striking makeup, do not need to claim attention, yet still make an entire room turn toward them the moment they appear? They do not need to display power, nor do they need to try to seem perfect. What is it within them that speaks louder than words, stronger than every motivational slogan out there? Perhaps you have once sat quietly at a gathering, silently observing the other women. Some keep smiling, initiating conversations, trying to connect, seemingly unable to rest for even a minute. Some remain calm, serene, sometimes even slightly detached from the crowd, yet with just one glance, one posture, they can make the person facing them feel safe, feel compelled to listen, feel drawn in. That is not magic. It is the result of a silent journey, a long dialogue with oneself. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." The problem for so many people is that they remain fixated on seeking confidence and self-worth through the eyes of others, through applause, through society's approval, through family standards, colleagues, friends, social media. From childhood, we are taught to be strong, to be independent, to be successful, to do many things at once, to endure well, and never be weak. But the more we try to meet those standards, the more inadequate we feel, always having to brace ourselves, afraid of missing a beat, afraid of falling behind, and deep inside, one question remains unanswered. If I stop, if I do nothing at all, do I still have value? This is the most painful paradox for many women who have experienced life, overcome crises, endured heartbreak, even rebuilt their lives from the beginning. They have learned how to survive, but have never truly lived for themselves. On the outside, they are strong, capable, carrying every role. But when night falls and the mask gradually slips, they feel lost, empty, like a grand tree with rotting roots, where touching it only echoes the remnants of old worn-out rhythms. The truth is, real confidence has nothing to do with what we show to the outside world. It is not about always being able to speak, always being able to do, always being attractive, or always being okay. It is an inner state of harmony, where mind, body, and soul no longer argue, no longer deny, no longer torment one another. It is when a person can truly listen to herself, hearing both the timid, fearful voice, and the strong, confident thoughts. True confidence is when you know who you are, what brings you joy, what causes you pain, and can embrace both as one unified whole. Jung never believed in superficial perfection. He warned very clearly, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Not everyone dares to believe this. Most of us get stuck in what has already happened, too afraid to face it, too afraid to forgive, too afraid to let go. True confidence begins when you are brave enough to turn inward, to touch those old scars and ask, "Who am I really, if I am no longer playing any role?" Have you ever tried standing in front of the mirror and asking yourself that question, not to judge or evaluate, but just to truly be seen, to be heard, as yourself? That is the very first moment of genuine confidence. I remember the story of Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman who endured countless criticisms, ridicule about her appearance, her background, and even personal pains that no one else knew about. As a child, she often felt abandoned, not good enough, even calling herself the ugly duckling. But Eleanor didn't let those wounds define her value. Over the years, she chose to step up, to give voice to her inner world, to do things society then considered not for women. It was her courage to face pain and accept even her weaknesses that made Eleanor an icon not just for her outer achievements, but for the way she held on to her sense of self through every storm. Another example comes from science, from the story of Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman astronaut to travel into space. As a child, Mae was often laughed at by teachers, friends, even family for her dreams. Throughout her education, she had to confront skepticism, discrimination, and advice that dream isn't for you. But Mae did not deny her fear, nor ignore the moments she wanted to give up. She learned to listen to and transform those feelings. When she boarded the space shuttle Endeavour, she didn't just represent the dreams of millions of children of color. She also affirmed, "Confidence is not the absence of fear, but knowing what you want, knowing who you are, and daring to move forward even when fear is still there." What do you see in these two stories? Haven't you also experienced the feeling of having to choose between pleasing others and being true to yourself? How many times have you brushed aside your intuition, suppressed your feelings, forgotten your real self just to feel safe in a social role, and then, even after fulfilling every duty, still felt not enough inside? A loneliness no one on the outside could truly understand. If you find yourself in this story, pause for a moment. Place your hand on your chest, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what inside me is being forgotten? It might be an old fear, a desire once denied, or a small part of you that has been waiting for so long just to be acknowledged. The solution does not lie in forcing yourself to be stronger. True confidence does not arise from doing more, achieving higher, or speaking in a tougher way. Sometimes, it only comes when you dare to admit your own vulnerability, when you allow yourself to cry, to be weak, to say, "I am not okay," without feeling ashamed. It is in that very moment that you begin to become your own roots. Jung once emphasized, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." We spend our whole lives trying to become someone the world expects us to be. But the real privilege of a lifetime, and the greatest secret that confident women understand, is daring to return to your original self, to the simple and sometimes very fragile truth of who you are. So, if you are still on the journey to find confidence, remember this: it is not something you will possess forever, nor is it something anyone else can give you. Confidence is a relationship, a conversation between you and the deepest layers of yourself. The more honest you are with yourself, the more willing you are to face both your light and your darkness, the steadier you will become. You do not have to prove anything at all. You just need to stay with yourself long enough to realize, whether anyone recognizes you or not, you are still worthy. Maybe tomorrow, when you face new challenges, judgments, or skeptical looks, you will still be afraid. But true confidence is not about running away from fear. It is about choosing to walk with it, to make it a part of your inner strength. And once you dare to live authentically, you will realize nothing outside of you can determine your worth. No one but you can keep the peace within you. You will become like the oak tree in winter, quiet, strong, and unwavering amidst all of life's changes. If these words have touched something within you, just pause and listen. Let confidence begin from a single small moment, a promise you keep to yourself, a decision not to abandon yourself if only for today. Because in the end, confidence is simply being yourself, living with yourself, and daring to be proud of it, whether or not the world out there notices. In your opinion, what is true confidence? Please share your story, your thoughts, or your experience about this topic in the comments. Who knows, your perspective might give strength to someone searching for real confidence. 2. Inner energy and the psychological archetypes of women. There are long nights when the city has gone to sleep, the light from the living room shining onto the cold, damp grass outside. A woman sits quietly by the window, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. Out there, the wind sweeps fallen leaves along the silent street. Inside her, there is also such a space, both peaceful and restless. She does not cry, does not laugh, only feels a very real, very deep stillness, as if after layers and layers of emotion, all that remains is her own sigh. No one knows that inside her, there are two silent streams flowing, like two underground rivers beneath a North American forest. One stream is pure, gentle, and warm. The other is shadowy, where countless memories, scars, recollections, and pains that she has never shared with anyone accumulate. That is the inner energy, where two ancient psychological archetypes described by Carl Jung reside. On one side is the goddess, representing light, tolerance, peace, acceptance, and the unwavering belief in self-worth. On the other is the wounded energy, tied to the fear of abandonment, rejection, unhealed wounds, and the yearning for recognition from the outside. Do you recognize this struggle within yourself? During the day, you are strong, resilient, as solid as stone, but when night falls, you suddenly become soft, fragile, like a child needing the comfort of an embrace. Sometimes, a single cold remark from someone can bring you to your knees, while hundreds of words of encouragement cannot lift you back up. Why does this happen? Carl Jung called these two opposing sides archetypes, ancient models rooted deep in the collective unconscious of humanity, passed down from generation to generation. In every woman, there are these two streams of energy, without exception. One, the goddess current, like the image of the Virgin Mary, symbolizing serenity, compassion, and steadfast faith in a meaning that transcends all circumstances. The other, the wounded energy, like the image of Eve, instinctive, emotional, often doubting herself, always swayed by memories, fears, childhood wounds, and failures she has not yet dared to face. You may have found yourself becoming both of those women, all within a single short day. In the morning, you drive your child to school, waving to the new sun, telling yourself you will live fully and with optimism. At noon, a colleague makes a critical comment, and you suddenly shrink back, your heart tightens, and the old feeling rushes back. I'm not good enough, I'm nothing in their eyes. At night, you hug your soft pillow, trying to close your eyes, but your mind drifts back to old memories, the day you were rejected, the day someone said goodbye, the day your mother died, the day your career collapsed. These memories do not disappear. They just lie dormant in the shadowy part of your soul, sometimes still bleeding quietly. What is special is that both energies are real, both deserve to be heard. The problem is that most of us, especially middle-aged American women who have experienced pain, divorce, and loss, tend to deny the shadow side, trying to appear strong, suppressing all negative emotions, seeing wounds as something weak and shameful. We become obsessed with the invincible goddess image, always calm, always forgiving, always smiling even when our hearts are breaking. But Jung saw the problem at a deeper level. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Only when you dare to recognize, to step into the darkness, to have a conversation with your own wounds, insecurities, and fears, do you truly mature and become confident." Someone may ask, so where is the line between the goddess and wounded energy? The answer is not in erasing one or the other, but in reconciliation. A confident woman does not deny her darkness, does not pretend to be strong, nor does she lull herself with cheap affirmations. She accepts that inside her, there is always a part of Eve, fragile, fearful, easily hurt. But instead of letting that part lead, she learns to listen, to comfort, and ultimately to integrate it with the light and peace inside. That is why a truly confident woman does not need to make an impression, does not need to speak loudly. Her presence is solid and serene enough for others to feel it without a single introduction. The story of Rosa Parks is a vivid illustration of the goddess archetype, reconciling with the shadow. As a woman of color, Rosa suffered oppression, discrimination, and cruel treatment, carrying hundreds of wounds that could not be put into words. But the day she calmly sat on the bus and refused to give up her seat to a white man, she did not show anger, did not shout, did not draw attention. She simply sat there quiet, composed, assured. Her silence ignited a wave of change across America. That strength did not come from an outer armor, but from the inner power of a soul that had seen and embraced its pain, not letting it become a weapon against the world, but a force for changing the world. Or think of another woman, Toni Morrison, the African-American writer and Nobel laureate. Her life was far from peaceful. Since childhood, she witnessed violence, injustice, and loss. But Toni never let herself drown in the role of a victim. She once said, "If you surrender to the wind, you can ride it." It was her willingness to accept the storm, to accept the vastness of pain, that allowed her to transform each page she wrote into a form of healing for herself and for millions of readers. In her work, Toni never avoided the truth about darkness. She went through it, transforming it into light. Her characters, just like herself, all had to walk through pain to recognize the archetype of woundedness, and only then could they reclaim the goddess strength within. As you listen to this, do you feel something resonating inside you? Have you ever truly lived with the goddess part peaceful and content? Or are you still haunted by the image of Eve, the girl who always feels she must push harder, be more beautiful, be better, be acknowledged by someone else? Have you ever felt your inner world is like a winter sky, where dark clouds and the sun both exist, sometimes cold, sometimes warm, following no fixed rules? Confidence will never be complete if you keep forcing yourself to become the perfect goddess. That is a subtle trap of modern society, turning the goddess archetype into an ideal that everyone must chase, and denying the Eve weakness in each of us. But Jung asserted, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That is, if you do not recognize and connect with the shadow parts of yourself, they will silently control every choice, every emotion, and you'll end up blaming fate. So what is the solution? There are no shortcuts, no magic formulas. Every journey begins with a small act of courage, daring to pause, daring to look straight at the pain that once made you collapse, daring to name it, daring to say to yourself, I am still okay, even if I am not perfect. You can practice this each night before bed. When the city has gone quiet, close your eyes. Recall a recent moment when you felt weak, afraid, or hurt. Don't judge. Don't blame yourself for being weak. Try asking one small question. If I don't try to be stronger anymore, what would happen? Maybe you will feel relieved, maybe you will cry, maybe you will feel angry. But then, in that silence, you will realize one thing. The essence of the goddess is not about being free from pain, but about accepting that pain as a sacred part of yourself. And you'll notice that the truly confident women around you all share one thing in common. They do not talk about strength, do not fight for the spotlight, do not try to impress. Sometimes it is just a nod, a glance, a steady presence that makes others feel trust and peace when near them. That is an energy that cannot be faked, memorized, or performed on social media. That confidence is the result of a long journey of daring to dialogue with darkness, not to conquer or eliminate it, but to learn to integrate it, to live more honestly with your original self every day. You do not need to become Mary, nor do you need to fear being Eve. You just need to be honest enough to listen to every whisper inside when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're anxious, when you're at peace. And once you recognize and reconcile with the darkness, you will understand. Your energy does not come from what you say or do, but from your state of being, your acceptance, your courage to be yourself. If you've listened this far, ask yourself, today, have you embraced both your goddess and your Eve? And are you brave enough to start a conversation with the rest of yourself, right when everything around you has quieted down? Because true confidence is not a destination, but a journey every day, every minute, every moment, You have the courage to live fully within yourself, with both light and darkness, with both strength and vulnerability. 3. The origin and process of building self-confidence. A quiet night in a wooden house on the outskirts of America. Outside there is only the gentle sound of wind passing through the trees. Under the soft yellow light, there is a small table. On it rests an old journal, its faded pages imprinted with the marks of time. A woman is sitting, her eyes fixed on the page, pen paused in mid-sentence, hesitant. Each stroke of the pen is like a heartbeat of memory, of things gone by, of the stumbles, of moments when she felt she had no worth left. And yet, right there in that space, something slowly emerges, like a small flame quietly burning in her heart through the years. It is not a temporary comfort, nor the empty encouragement of someone out there. It is a gentle, persistent voice, one that has been there all along. I'm still here. Even if everything out there changes, I still remain for myself. Oh. Have many people once wished for a quick secret, a miracle, or a piece of advice that could give them confidence after just a few days or weeks? In America, the self-help culture, with hundreds of thousands of books, seminars, motivational videos, promises that if you just think positive, all wounds will disappear and you will become the best version of yourself. But when the lights go out, when you return to your own silence, have you ever felt that all those words of advice are just a thin layer of paint, unable to fill the cracks that have lain deep inside for so long? The truth is, self-confidence does not come from fleeting emotions, nor is it a gift from fate, nor something you can memorize. It also has little to do with age, appearance, or what you possess on the outside. It is the result of a long journey, sometimes full of pain, challenges, discipline, and even moments of despair. Just like the old forests of the West that survive after snowstorms, not because they avoided the storms, but because they learned how to live with them, learned how to draw nourishment from what had once been destroyed. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming oneself. He wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. No one is truly confident without having passed through their own inner darkness. Everyone has moments of fear, weakness, mistakes, betrayal, and pain. Most people choose to avoid, deny, or do everything they can to cover up those imperfect parts beneath layers of success, cheerfulness, energy, and optimism. Yet the more you reject them, the larger those wounds become in the unconscious, quietly driving your feelings, shaping your actions, and paralyzing your instinct to live authentically. Self-confidence only forms when you dare to face, recognize, and begin to heal the wounds of the soul." As you listen here, do you notice in yourself the moments when you've denied your real emotions, telling yourself, "It's fine," and then kept pushing through life for the sake of duty, for your children, for your job, for others? How many times have you started the day with the promise, "Today will be different," only to end the night blaming yourself, feeling weak, losing trust in yourself once again? Carl Jung viewed maturity as a journey through the dark woods. He did not say you have to completely get rid of your darkness. Instead, he advised that you listen, enter it, name each wound, each fear, each painful memory, because only when they are recognized can the light shine in. He once wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." This means, when you understand and accept your own darkness, you no longer fear it, and you are peaceful enough to face the darkness of others. Let me tell you the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the American Supreme Court Justice, a symbol of steadfastness, resilience, and an inspiration of confidence for millions of women across America. Ruth was born into an immigrant family, growing up in a time when women were undervalued. As a law student, she was one of only 9 women among over 500 male students, looked down upon by professors and peers simply because of her gender. She was rejected from many jobs, discriminated against, isolated. But Ruth didn't use anger as motivation, nor did she wear a mask to appear stronger than others. On the contrary, she quietly acknowledged her pain and transformed it into inner strength. In her early days at work, she sometimes cried, sometimes thought of giving up, but each time she wrote in her journal, "I have the right to be sad, to be hurt, but I also have the right to stand up, because my worth does not depend on anyone else's judgment." It was precisely this discipline, enduring each failure, each rejection, Every moment she felt like an outsider that built for Ruth an unshakable foundation of self-confidence. When she sat on the Supreme Court bench, people saw her calm, rational manner, but they also felt the power of a soul that had been forged through many years of facing herself. Another example is the story of Brené Brown, an American professor and renowned researcher who grew up haunted by the fear of failure and the obsession with imperfection. In her early years of motherhood, Brené often felt she was not good enough, unable to control everything, and the more she tried to act strong, the more exhausted and empty she became. She once shared about a breakdown when she locked herself in the bathroom, sobbing uncontrollably just because a small thing in her day didn't go as planned. Later, Brené said, "The truth is, belonging starts with self-acceptance." It was the courage to recognize, to confront, to accept herself even in her most vulnerable moments that allowed her to rise up and build a solid foundation of self-confidence. After decades of research on vulnerability and healing, she concluded that all advice to think positive, be strong, is merely temporary if it does not come with a journey of looking deeply within and facing one's own true darkness. As you listen here, you might sigh, because that process is never easy and certainly can't be finished in a day, a month, or even a year. There will be times when you feel like you're falling behind, sinking into a pit of disappointment, doubting yourself. You may repeat the same mistakes, stumble many times, and often wonder, why can't I get better? But remember, this journey is not a race against anyone but yourself. No one can live your life for you. No one can understand your darkness the way you do. The process of building self-confidence is like constructing a bridge over a wide river. Each brick is a moment you dare to face old pain, a time you no longer run from memories, a time you dare to name your vulnerability. The bridge won't be sturdy just because you finished reading a book, listening to a talk, or completing a 30-day inspiration challenge. The bridge is strong only when you patiently place each small brick, even if sometimes you have to tear it down and rebuild, but you never give up. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. No one can truly grow up without experiencing pain. But pain isn't meant to keep you down forever. Pain is there so you can grow, so you can understand yourself better, so you can realize that every mistake is a chance to look deeper into your true self and heal something inside you." What is the solution for you when you get to this point and still feel lost and confused? First, stop comparing yourself to others. Each person has their own journey, their own darkness, their own unique pace of growth. What you need is honesty with yourself, the courage to admit that you're not okay yet, that you have old wounds that haven't healed, that you're still afraid of failure, still afraid of being left behind. Don't blame yourself, don't deny it, and don't rush to force yourself to be positive right away. Instead, start from the smallest steps, like journaling every night, writing down your real feelings without judgment, giving yourself a quiet moment every day just to breathe, to listen to your own heartbeat. When facing failure, instead of blaming yourself, ask, what is the real lesson here? What could I do differently next time? If it feels too difficult, don't hesitate to seek help, a trusted friend, a professional, a support group. True self-confidence does not come from the outside, and even less from anything temporary or superficial. It is a process of forging, a journey with no certain destination, where every day you learn how to embrace both your darkness and your light. If you're listening to this and still feel lost, remember, there is no perfect individuation journey. No one crosses their darkness without scars, but those scars are proof of your courage and growth. It's those seemingly meaningless days, those repeated failures, that become the soil nurturing the roots of self-confidence, so that one day you look back and realize you are no longer shaken by someone else's judgment, no longer dependent on the turmoil out there. Because after all, as Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Only by daring to face your inner world can you truly awaken. And then, confidence is no longer something you have to chase, but something that naturally grows within you. Little by little, each day, each moment, you choose to stay with yourself and not give up, no matter how much the world outside may change. What do you think about the journey of building self-confidence? Share your experiences, your challenges, or meaningful lessons you have learned. Maybe your story will help someone else find their own light. Comment below. 4. Concrete steps to building self-confidence. Keeping promises to yourself. There are mornings when the first sunlight barely touches the window frame and the alarm rings softly. In that moment, you know you only need to make one small decision. Get up as you promised yourself last night, or postpone it, hitting the snooze button for a few more minutes. On the outside, no one would think this is important, but in reality, every small choice like that is exactly where you start to build or break your trust in yourself. As you listen to this, ask yourself, how many times have you promised to write in your journal every night, but by the end of the day, you let it go because you were tired? How many times have you set goals to exercise, eat healthily, take time for yourself, and then let work, worries, or simple reluctance sweep away everything you had promised? The truth is, most wounds to our self-esteem do not come from failing at something big, but from repeatedly breaking small promises we make to ourselves. Carl Jung once reminded, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Only when each promise is fulfilled, no matter how minor, like getting up on time, writing a few lines in your journal, drinking enough water, do you gradually rebuild the bridge of inner trust. Self-confidence, therefore, does not come from grand moments, but from the result of hundreds, thousands of quiet actions repeated each day. For example, think of Jane Goodall, the famous American primatologist. No one witnessed the years she persisted in rising early, recording every movement of the chimpanzee groups in Africa. The small promises she kept to herself, even if it was just finishing one page of notes a day, built a firm trust within her to face countless challenges and skepticism from the scientific community. Or take the story of Misty Copeland, the first African-American ballerina to become a prima ballerina at the American Ballet Theatre. Misty grew up in poverty. Her family was full of upheavals. She didn't start with exceptional talent or ideal conditions, but every day she kept her promise to herself. Practice for 10 more minutes, learn a new move, listen to her body instead of the discouraging voice in her head. Gradually, those small commitments helped Misty realize every time she fulfilled a promise to herself, she no longer needed anyone's validation, nor was she afraid of failure anymore. That internal consistency transformed her into a symbol of overcoming adversity, inspiring millions of American women with the power of self-reliance. As you listen to this, you might wonder, how can I keep promises to myself when life is full of changes and so many external factors? The solution is actually simpler than you think. Don't set yourself up with overly ambitious goals. Start with the smallest, most concrete things, like waking up 10 minutes earlier, taking a walk every afternoon, or spending 5 minutes to breathe deeply before going to sleep. Write down 3 simple commitments for the new week and put them somewhere you can easily see. Every evening, instead of only recording big achievements, remind yourself, what did I do today that was true to the promise I made to myself? Not everyone succeeds every time they try, but self-confidence grows day by day, thanks to the fact that you do not give up or abandon yourself just because of one failure. By keeping your promises to yourself, you are steadily building the strongest foundation of inner trust, a foundation that no circumstance, no judgment, no outside evaluation can shake. Remember, true strength is not in grand declarations, but in every small choice you quietly make for yourself each day. Training, intuition, and listening to the body. There are late evenings, when the whole house has fallen asleep, and you let yourself sink into the comfort of a soft sofa. Outside the window is the quiet darkness of the suburbs. The gentle yellow light in the kitchen is still on, radiating a sense of peace. In that stillness, you suddenly notice your heartbeat slowing, each deep breath spreading through your chest. That's when the chaotic thoughts, the voices telling you what you should do from the outside world, temporarily give way to something quieter, deeper, a very soft call from within. Is this really what I want? As you listen to this, try to remember how many times in your life you've made decisions based on logic, on the opinions of the majority, on the advice of friends, social media, the news, only to later feel disappointed, regretful, or doubtful about your own choices. That's because you ignored the most important channel of communication, your intuition, and your bodily sensations. Carl Jung once affirmed, "Intuition does not denote something contrary to reason, but something outside the province of reason." Wonder. In other words, Intuition does not oppose rationality, but is a gateway that connects you to the living data stored in your unconscious, a place where every experience, pain, memory, and joy is kept. Things you sometimes cannot recall in words, but your body always remembers. Think of Maya Angelou, the American poet, writer, and speaker. She went through many hardships and losses, at one point almost losing her voice after a childhood trauma. But those silent years taught her to listen to the smallest vibrations in her soul and body. Maya Angelou often shared that before every big decision, she would go quiet and pay attention to how her body responded, her throat tightening, her chest growing heavy, or her palms becoming warm and light. Thanks to this sensitivity, she always knew when to speak, when to remain silent, when to keep moving forward, and when to pause to preserve her sense of self. Another example is Serena Williams, the legendary American female tennis player. In many crucial matches, when thousands of spectators cheered or criticized, Serena kept the habit of pausing for a few seconds, listening to each heartbeat, feeling the grip of her hands on the racket. This deep connection between body and intuition helped her know when to take risks, when to stay calm, and how to master her emotions to turn the tide of a match. If you have ever felt lost amid the noise of society, directionless, easily swayed by every choice, try listening to yourself, starting with the sensations of your own body. The solution does not need to be complicated. Every time you face a decision, pause for a moment. Place your hand on your chest or your abdomen, close your eyes, and focus on your physical sensations. Do you feel light, relaxed, or is there tightness and tension? If your body reacts with comfort and warmth, that is often a sign your intuition is guiding you in the right direction. On the other hand, if anxiety and heaviness appear, be honest with yourself. Maybe that choice is not truly right for you. Spend some quiet time each day, even just 5 or 10 minutes, to identify your true feelings without judgment and without trying to change anything. Write down a word to describe your emotion after listening to your body. Over time, you will find yourself less dependent on outside voices and more confident in your own choices. Jung once said, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." You don't always have to be right, and you don't need to explain everything according to society's standards. What you need is to recognize and walk alongside your intuition as a trustworthy companion on the journey to authenticity. Confidence does not come from theory, but from every moment you listen to and respect your body, daring to trust your inner voice even if it is faint or vague. That is the first step for you to stop losing your way in a noisy world and to be at peace with becoming your true self, even if no one else understands it but you. Establishing and protecting personal boundaries. In suburban homes, when night falls and the warm light only glimmers at the window, it's easy to sense a very private quiet. That is the space you close off after a long day of facing work, family, and society. Like a small backyard garden encircled by a white fence, inside there are only plants, fresh air, and yourself. Someone once said, "The most beautiful gardens are those where only the owner holds the key." This is the very image of personal boundaries, a place where you protect your energy, peace, and the deepest values within your heart. As you listen to this, try to reflect. How many times have you allowed others to step over that boundary? Have you ever, out of fear of displeasing or being judged as selfish, agreed to help even when you were already exhausted? How many times have you remained silent when you wanted to say no, believing that giving in was the way to maintain harmony? Gradually, you begin to feel your own energy erode. Joyful days become rare, and your self-esteem grows as thin as a piece of paper. Carl Jung once emphasized, "The healthy man does not torture others. Generally, it is the tortured who turn into torturers." Those without clear boundaries are easily drained, frustrated, and then unintentionally hurt others or themselves. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is an act of kindness to yourself, the foundation for maintaining positive energy and for not becoming a victim of external expectations or emotions. You can start with the smallest things. When you feel tired, dare to say no to an invitation, instead of forcing yourself to please others. Don't rush to reply to every message immediately, especially when you need time to recharge. Maybe someone will not be happy, maybe they won't understand, But if you don't protect your own space, no one else can do it for you. Personal boundaries, in essence, are a silent commitment. I deserve to be respected, and I will be the first to make that happen. And there is a story about Viola Davis, an American actress who won an Oscar, who grew up in poverty, endured years of having her privacy violated, and was often pushed to the margins in the entertainment industry simply because of her skin color. There was a time when Viola accepted every small role, every request from directors just to be recognized, even if it meant sacrificing her health and her own values. It wasn't until she realized she was losing her sense of direction that she began to set clear boundaries, only accepting roles that truly respected her skin color and her story, daring to say no to offers that would damage her self-respect. This decision not only helped her protect her energy, but also turned her into a powerful voice for millions of black women across America. Another example is the story of Glennon Doyle, a famous author and speaker who went through many heartbreaks, divorces, and remarriages. Glennon once shared, "Every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, your duty is to disappoint that someone else." The fact that she dared to set boundaries with her family, her friends, even the public, helped her preserve her creative energy and personal identity, even though it sometimes meant facing criticism. If you're listening now and realize that you are always afraid to say no, afraid of hurting others, remember, protecting your boundaries is the only way for you to maintain your self-respect and inner stability. The solution starts by identifying 3 situations that often drain you, writing them down, and choosing one small boundary to practice every day. This could be giving yourself 15 minutes of quiet each morning, not joining in negative conversations, or simply daring to apologize to yourself when you've let someone else cross your personal limits. Remember, your inner value does not come from pleasing others, but from your ability to protect and respect yourself. Confidence blooms on the ground that is guarded by strong boundaries, where no one can enter without the owner's consent. And only then will you be able to preserve your positive energy to move forward, to love, and to live true to your authentic self, no matter how chaotic the world outside may be. What steps are you taking to build confidence every day? Share your challenges or your story in the comments. Your experience might just be the inspiration someone else needs on this journey. 5. The spreading power of a confident woman. There are rooms where, the moment you step inside, you can feel the difference. The air softens, the pressure dissolves, and time seems to slow down. In that space, no one needs to speak loudly to attract attention, and no one has to struggle to hide anything. A woman sits quietly, her eyes deep and her hands resting gently on the table, unhurried, unruffled. Her presence is like the silent light of a candle in the night, not glaring, but just enough to make everyone feel safe, free to be themselves. As you listen to this, ask yourself, in your life, have you ever met someone like that? Someone who does not talk about their achievements, who doesn't show off their knowledge, who makes no effort to inspire anyone, yet simply through their calmness makes you want to look deeper into yourself, want to live more honestly, want to lower your guard. This is not the allure of appearance, not the attraction of power or status. This is the power of inner strength that radiates a light that only those who have walked through pain, who have reconciled with themselves, can possess. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The presence of a confident woman can transform an entire room, a family, even a community, not by what she says, but by the way she lives and exists. This is the healer archetype in Jungian psychology, someone who does not use power or logic to guide others, but who touches others' hearts through her own journey of overcoming darkness and growing up. You may have experienced the feeling of loneliness in a group of friends, in a meeting, or within your own family. The quiet tension surrounds you, with each person hiding their own fears, everyone keeping their distance, everyone being cautious. And then, suddenly, all it takes is one person brave enough to speak honestly, to admit their worries, to say they're not okay, or to share a wound they've hidden for a long time. The atmosphere immediately changes. The others begin to lower their guard, to talk about their real feelings, and naturally, everyone feels lighter. This domino effect does not happen by accident. but stems from the inner strength of the first person who dares to live authentically. A prime example is the story of Audre Lorde, the famous poet and social activist. She grew up amidst heavy layers of discrimination and prejudice, carrying the loneliness of a black woman, of being gay, and being rejected multiple times. But instead of trying to fit in, Lorde chose to be honest with all her feelings, even fear and anger. Her poetry readings were not typical motivational speeches, but moments when everyone listened and felt the quiet, courageous energy radiating from a soul that had healed itself. Many women later shared that they were inspired not just by Lorde's words, but by her peaceful presence, a quality that can only be found in someone who has truly gone through pain, faced it, and accepted every part of themselves. Another case, familiar and close, is Michelle Obama. When she was First Lady, she stood out not only for her confident demeanor but also for her humility and honesty. Michelle often spoke about her worries, her self-doubt, the wounds from her childhood, and her journey overcoming prejudice. But wherever she appeared, from large stages to small classrooms, she always brought a sense of safety, making others feel heard and respected. Michelle never tried to heal anyone with advice. She was simply a woman who had healed herself, and her presence helped those in front of her feel more willing to be honest with themselves. Jung wrote, "A person who has not passed through the inferno of their passions has never overcome them." A truly confident woman is one who has bravely passed through the hell of her emotions, who does not deny or run from them, but dares to go all the way, then returns with calm and gratitude for both the light and darkness within herself. That very state creates a quiet, spreading strength, like an underground stream nourishing arid land, like a gentle breeze soothing the heat of a summer day. As you listen to this point, you might be asking yourself, how can I become a woman like that? How can the confidence inside me go beyond myself and actually touch and heal those around me? The solution doesn't lie in learning more communication skills, nor in trying to show off more. What you need is perseverance in your own inner journey, step by step accepting, facing, and healing old wounds. When you no longer chase after external validation, no longer fear imperfection, you will naturally radiate an energy of safety for others. That ripple effect can begin the moment you dare to set personal boundaries, dare to say no when necessary, dare to listen to your intuition and true feelings, dare to keep even the smallest promise to yourself. You don't have to be a leader or have millions of followers. Just being present, steady, honest, and full of compassion for yourself already makes you a healer for your environment. Think of the resonance effect. When a confident woman sits quietly in a turbulent room, her breathing will influence the person next to her, who in turn influences the next, not with hollow words or superficial encouragement, but simply by being true to herself. The truth is, the most confident people are not those who make others admire them, but those who make others feel safe enough to let their guard down, to be vulnerable, to speak their truth. Jung once reminded us, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." Everyone has their own journey, their own wounds, their own way to heal and to shine. The only thing you need is honesty with yourself, because only then can the light you carry find its way to someone else's heart. As you listen to this, if there has been someone in your life who once made you feel safe, who inspired you to live more authentically, take a moment to feel grateful for them, and then ask yourself, could I become that gentle source of light for someone else? Don't rush to think you're too small or not enough. The journey to confidence isn't a grand road, but a series of small steps, brave choices, and moments when you choose to be honest with your feelings every day. And then, little by little, that power will quietly spread gently, without fanfare, without declarations, without anyone needing to prove anything. That is the kind of energy that makes you a healer for every space you enter, for every community you join, simply because you have truly reconciled with and learned to love yourself. 6. Rediscovering your true tribe. There are nights when, after the movies are over and every conversation on social media has faded, you lie on your familiar bed, wrapped in a warm, quiet blanket, and yet somewhere you still hear a vague voice. Does anyone truly understand me? That is the feeling shared by so many after a long journey of healing, self-development, and building confidence, only to realize they still feel lost among their own family, community, or old circles of friends. Even an old oak, no matter how strong, cannot survive forever in isolation. Its roots may go deep, but it still needs the wind, the sunlight, the birdsong, those healthy touches from the world outside. As you listen to this, you may realize a deep truth. Once you are strong enough inside, pain no longer wounds you, but the existential loneliness still remains. In modern society, we are constantly connected by technology, but the number of people who feel tribeless is ever increasing, especially among middle-aged people, women who have endured heartbreak, and those who have just completed a journey of self-healing. They no longer crave to stand out, nor do they want to prove anything. What they seek now is a true sense of belonging, a resonance that needs no pretense, no exhausting effort to blend in, just to avoid being left behind. Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." In today's developed society, there is a strange phenomenon. The more choices we have, the easier it is to lose our way. The more communities there are, the harder it is to find our true tribe. Old groups of friends, reunions, family gatherings, hobby clubs, all may seem lively and cheerful at first glance, but after it's all over, how many of us actually feel touched, truly sense ourselves in tune and in harmony with others? This is especially true for women after divorce, after a crisis, or during life's transitions, when the need for deep connection becomes more urgent than ever. They may have been attached to their family, their partner, or their career, but when those old tribes no longer fit or have broken apart, the sense of loneliness and loss of direction hits harder than ever before. Listening now, you might recall the story of Elizabeth Gilbert, author of Eat, Pray, Love. After a painful divorce, Elizabeth fell into emptiness, feeling lost among friends and family. Though once successful and famous, she still felt like she belonged nowhere. That's when Elizabeth decided to embark on the journey to rediscover her true tribe. She joined meditation communities, creative circles, lived with strangers in India, Italy, Bali. Not all of these experiences brought her belonging, but by daring to open up, Elizabeth finally found kindred spirits, those who listened, shared, empathized, and did not judge. Through this, she not only found herself again, but also realized a true tribe consists of people who walk the same meaningful path, not necessarily in great numbers, but with enough sincerity. Another, more relatable example is the story of The Dinner Party, a spontaneous community in America founded by women who had lost loved ones. They once tried to fit into their old social groups, but no one could truly understand the depth of their loss. Instead of struggling to blend in with the majority, they decided to host small dinners where each person could tell her own story, listen to others, without fear of judgment. Over time, these small groups grew into a new tribe, where everyone could regain a sense of belonging and be recognized for their unique value and experience. Psychologically, Jung called this the need for the collective unconscious, a healthy collective consciousness. Within each of us is a longing for real connection with an authentic community, with kindred spirits. When such connections happen, healing energy no longer comes solely from personal effort but is multiplied, amplified. A small circle where everyone can be real, listen, and be heard will bring a more lasting dopamine than any fleeting personal achievement. The solution for loneliness is not in finding the crowds, nor in joining any group just to fill the void. What you need to do is dare to step out of your old comfort zone, open yourself to new spaces and communities where true values are respected and shared. This could be a book club, a creative circle, a yoga class, a volunteer community, or simply a small group with shared interests, where each person is allowed to be different and still belong. You can start with small steps. Join a new community activity that sparks your curiosity, even if it's just once. Dare to speak your true feelings and share your story when you feel safe, instead of falling back into old habits of silence. Listen deeply to the stories of others, instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. Take the initiative to seek out or suggest small friend groups, sharing circles with shared values. Carl Jung once reminded us, the larger the group, the less the individual responsibility. But in the smaller group, every individual counts, and what each one does is important. That is why deep connections can only form when you dare to show up authentically, are patient enough to recognize your true tribe, and honest enough not to lose your identity just to fit in with the majority. As you listen to this, you might still worry, will I really find my tribe? The important thing is, this process cannot be rushed, nor is it always smooth. You may join a few groups that don't fit. You may feel disappointed at times, but as long as you remain persistent and sincere, the true sense of belonging will gradually come. And once you find that connection, even if it is only with one person or a small group, the dopamine you receive will no longer come from personal achievements, but from empathy, resonance, from the feeling of being touched and truly belonging to a meaningful circle. That is the tribe you have chosen for yourself, built yourself, and nurtured yourself, not just a place where you have to struggle to blend in. Healthy connection is not about seeking the crowd, but about daring to step out of your cocoon, to open your heart, to experience and recognize the true value of the tribe you need. It is the harmony and resonance of kindred spirits, the greatest reward for a journey of growth that has been long and deep enough. And then you will realize you are no longer alone on this inner journey. Have you ever found your true tribe? Share your journey or the challenges you faced in connecting with like-minded people. Your story might inspire someone else who is also searching for belonging. Leave a comment below. 7. Creative renewal. Rewriting your own story. Before the night fully falls, in those quiet moments when no one needs you anymore, when there are no more roles to play or burdens to carry, your mind suddenly becomes a blank sheet of paper. There, you can sit with yourself. No pressure to prove anything, no more races to win. All of a sudden, amidst all the memories that have passed, a gentle longing rises up. What would my life look like if I could write the next chapter with my own hands? As you listen to this, feel this within yourself. Confidence, resilience, the ability to heal, these are all foundations, but only the beginning. After weathering many storms, no longer lost or needing anyone else's definition, so many experienced women, especially in middle age, begin to see a new landscape, not just wanting to live peacefully anymore, but wanting to leave a mark for themselves, to try something new, to even recreate themselves on a creative journey they never dared to imagine before. This is not a yearning to relive youth, nor is it regret for what has passed. It's a very real urge. I still have time. I still have creativity. Why not dare to try? Carl Jung called this the process of integration of the self, when individuation has reached a great enough depth that a person wants to turn all the fragmented pieces that were once broken into an entirely new, vibrant being. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The greatest privilege of a lifetime is not to achieve outward success, but to become wholly and creatively yourself. When that journey begins, many people realize they have come home to themselves, but that doesn't mean everything stops there. Now, the urge is to continue painting the story of life, not for anyone else, and not by any standard model. In reality, there are countless inspiring stories about creative renewal after middle age. Vera Wang, an icon in the fashion industry, was not a designer when she was young. She was a figure skater, then a magazine editor, only starting to learn sewing and experiment with wedding dress design at age 40. That's an age when many believe all creative dreams have already closed, yet Vera Wang rewrote her life story from scratch and became an inspiration for millions of women worldwide. Or Grandma Moses, an ordinary woman, a lifelong farmer who didn't pick up a paintbrush until she was 78. She never formally studied art, but simply wanted to preserve the beauty of memories of her homeland in her heart. When she died at 101, Grandma Moses had created more than 1,500 paintings and was considered one of the greatest folk artists. The miracle is, she only truly began when others thought everything was already finished. As you listen to this, you may wonder, do I have enough time, enough energy to start again? The truth is, you don't need to become famous, nor do anything too grand. To creatively renew your life is to allow yourself to experience things you've never dared to try, to test yourself on new inner ground. It could be learning an art form, recording your life story, writing poetry, painting, singing, gardening, or simply beginning each day with curiosity and openness. Jung affirmed, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. When you dare to accept every version you have ever been, successes, failures, wounds, and peace, you finally have a true foundation to freely recreate yourself. This journey is no longer about healing, but about rebirth. You can rewrite your life map, redefine what it means to live, add new colors, create a personal mark, not for any social standard. The solution for you does not lie in big decisions, but begins with small artistic exercises. Try writing your journey, not as a resume, but as a story filled with emotion, lessons, and proud milestones. Do something you once feared, something you thought was too late to begin. Enroll in a class, create something, travel, challenge yourself in a completely new field. Set aside time each week for a creative activity, without pressure on results. Just enjoy the feeling of being yourself, of experiencing something new. As you listen to this, ask yourself, if I could write a new chapter, how would I begin? What would I do to make myself feel alive again? Don't wait for anyone to grant you that creative right. You deserve to be the author of your own life story, and right at the moment you dare to end the old chapter and write a new one, you will feel creative dopamine, a sense of renewal, youthfulness, and, once again, become yourself, but in a freer and more inspired version than ever before. Jung once reminded, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. When you have enough love, enough courage to accept your entire old story, you are also the only one who can rewrite, renew, and recreate yourself, not for anyone else, but for your soul that is finally whole. As you reach the end of this journey, remember that confidence is not just an outer garment, nor is it something you need to prove. It is the quiet flame inside, the light you find each time you face the mirror, even if the world turns its back on you. You still know you will not abandon yourself. Sometimes, you may see yourself as a lighthouse standing quietly in the fog, or as a small stream patiently flowing past the rocks, not noisy, but powerful enough to nourish an entire forest. Do not rush to end this dialogue. Keep it in your heart, so that each day you draw closer to your most original and powerful self. If this feeling touches you, please share the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know about your journey in a comment, because who knows, one small story may be enough to light the way for someone else searching for themselves.